South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most
Welcome in. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Thursday. Getting you ready for week number 6. Yes, be a third of the way through the NFL season after the completion of this week.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff Parles. That is Ryan McCormick on the other side of the desk. We're happy to be with you as always on this show today. We'll get through the Seahawks and the 49ers up in the Pacific Northwest, a very important game in the NFC West.
That it is.
6. Yep. We also have some college games to look at as well, and also our good friend Dwayne Colucci joins us 40 minutes from now, and also our chaotic power rankings in the National Football League, and they are chaotic. And just remember, Ryan McCormick cannot put the Green Bay Packers in the top 10, even though they will be in mine, and I know Ryan already admitted that they are in his, despite not showing up in his this week yet again.
Yep.
So maybe we'll work on Ryan. We'll actually get the legitimate list, and then he can go his Chicago Bears fandom list as well. Maybe we'll get you 2 sets of power rankings.
Well, I mean, I do have the Packers in the list. I just don't mentally put them above 13. Okay. So I know where they would be. It's just a matter of principle in my brain. I can't have the Packers as a top 10 team in football.
All right. Well, all right. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
Just a personal thing. It's just a personal thing.
See how the list plays out. Get to it a little later in the program. All right. Let's start off, Ryan. Let's start with tonight.
All right.
Seahawks, 49ers, game in Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington. This is, and look, I don't want to overreact. It's October 10th. There's a lot of season left. But with the way these two teams' seasons have so far started out, this is a monster game for week 6. Where you look at, let's start with Seattle, because there's been a lot of noise on San Francisco this week, and it feels like a lot of people are just kind of forgetting the narratives on the Seattle end of things as well. Seattle was 3-0 going into that Monday night showdown with Detroit 2 weeks ago. They actually hung in that game pretty darn well against Detroit. There were a lot of offensive oddities in that game.
Yep.
Seattle had 38 first downs. Jared Goff didn't throw an incomplete pass. Ends up coming out to a 42-29 defeat for the Seahawks in that one. And then last week, with a healthier defense, because they were missing half of their starters on defense due to injury against Detroit, Ryan.
Keyword there was healthier. Not completely healthy at all.
Not all the way there, but healthier. They got half of the 6 that were out back last week. And the Giants were the better team the whole game.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you take away
the fumble,
the first score that Seattle had you get a better camera angle. It's a 7-point swing, and the Giants win that game by 16 points instead of 9.
Yeah.
So I mean, just another a game that the Seahawks got the bounce that they needed.
And it didn't even help them in the end. Of course, the blocked field goal at the end, Giants bring it back for 6 and win 29-20. And the Seahawks lose 2 in a row. And at least for me, I thought this Seahawks team was somewhere in the range of 7. I thought their floor was high, but I thought their ceiling was low going into the year. I thought they were probably between 7 and 9 wins. So pretty low variance, all things considered. And they've been pretty high variance so far this year. And for Seattle, look, you got San Francisco limping in here. The Niners are 2-3. They're 0-2 in the division, and they've lost in just horrendous fashion in both of those losses. They were north of 20-1. The Rams were north of 20-1 on a money line in their comeback against the Niners in week 3. And then last week, I know Jake Moody got hurt midway, but that game was 23-10 at halftime. The Niners are in complete control. And then all of a sudden, you look up at the screen, it's like, wait a second, Arizona's driving for the win here.
Yep.
And they lose 24-23 to Arizona, who, look, to score no points. I know you didn't have a kicker in the second half, but to score no points in the second half against that defense, super alarming for San Francisco all the way around, Ryan.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about, the Niners getting shut out in the second half last week to the Cardinals. So, it's the 6th time that Kyle Shanahan's offense with the San Francisco 49ers has been held scoreless in the second half. They are 1-5 in those games. The following week, they have bounced back. They are 3-2. The two of those 3 wins are in overtime. All 3 of those wins are by just a field goal. So you take out Jake Moody tonight, That could come to be a pretty good question for this game. But if you branch it out to all time, Seahawks lead this rivalry 30-22. But the Niners are on their longest win streak of the rivalry, winning their last 5 of this rivalry. And then you had mentioned that the Seahawks started 3-0, lost their last 2. So I went back and did some searching on when the Seahawks have a 2+ game losing streak since joining the NFC West. So I tried to do 2-game losing streak going into a matchup versus an NFC West opponent. So they are since 2008 on 2+ losing streak. Okay, period. 2008, 2+ losing streak into a home game. They are 20-0 against the spread. They are 16-4 straight up. If you go to NFC West opponents specifically, okay, so 3-1 straight up and against the spread. Their one loss was last year against the Seahawks, or
against the Niners.
Against the Niners. Yep. Sorry, Drew Lock's first start of the year last year because Geno Smith was hurt. So yes, the lone loss for the Seahawks was against the Niners, but they are also 13-3. Holy cow! Can I get this straight? 13-3 facing an NFC West opponent. Okay, let me start over. Goodness gracious. Sorry. 2+ losses in a row going against an NFC West opponent. 13-3. They are 3-1 in the Kyle Shanahan era. There we go. And the one loss was to the 49ers with Drew Lock coming off. Drew Lock, his one start of the year. Okay. And then if you branched out to all opponents since the Seahawks joined the NFC West, they are 37-18 straight up, 42-11-2 against the spread, and they are 22-32-1 to the over/under. So 22 overs, 32 unders, and 1 push. So typically tighter games. Typically the Seahawks end up covering when they have 2+ losses going into a divisional matchup or a matchup in general. So that was the kind of notes that I had on the back-to-back. But with that in mind, Seattle in their last 21 games, 7-14 against the spread.
Going to the Niners, I want to go there because we mentioned it before. Shut out in the second half by a bottom tier defense. I'm being nice to Arizona. They were the worst defense in the NFL through the first month. And that was the healthiest San Francisco's been basically the whole season, other than week 1 last week, where Debo was back and fully healthy. Ayuk is more integrated into the offense because he wasn't there all training camp. Kittle looked healthy. Jordan Mason, look, again, we're operating under the assumption we don't see Christian McCaffrey until December at this point. Maybe November, but more likely than not December, if we see Christian McCaffrey at all this year, which, again, be sad if McCaffrey didn't play at all this year, especially when we didn't even know it was a significant injury going into week 1. But this is for San Francisco and Chris Andrews, who, of course, runs the shop behind us and is with us on Mondays. And he and Vinny and I, of course, are here on Fridays, along with Jimmy Vaccaro as well, has brought up the point so many times of usually the team that loses the Super Bowl is the good team to fade the next year. And the Niners, of course, in 2019 made the Super Bowl, lost to Kansas City in excruciating fashion. Honestly, both their Super Bowl losses to Kansas City were excruciating fashion, to put it politely. And then the following year, 2020, was a hellish year. Well, for plenty of reasons, but for the Niners, 6-10.
Everyone got hurt.
Legitimately everyone got hurt. Garoppolo got hurt. Bosa got season-ending injury. Like just
Kittle got hurt, yeah.
Hey, Debo got hurt.
Yeah.
Everybody got hurt in 2020, and they went 6-10. Now, Christian McCaffrey's obviously hasn't played. They've already dealt with the Debo and Kittle injuries. Didn't matter.
And they had the drama with Ayuk to begin the year.
Exactly. So this has just been a confluence of events that just are going against San Francisco consistently. Now, you can argue, though, that the Niners had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter against the Rams and had a 13-point lead going into the second half against the Cardinals. And if they win those games, they're 4-1, and they're probably, what, a 5-point favorite tonight?
Yeah.
Maybe pushing 6 if they win those 2 games. Even if they win it last week, this is 4.5. I think this is even with the positive numbers you mentioned with Seattle, where they've been really good, especially off of losing multiple games in a row against the number. This feels like a good Niners spot.
I agree.
For them to get their act together, win tonight, cover. Again, if you got the 3 early in the week, good job. Because that was the best number by a wide margin out there. We're not going to see 3 again by the time this game kicks. I think we're more likely to see 4, Ryan. I still think the Niners are good at 3.5 on this one, and they win this game tonight, get back to 500, and with all the nonsense that's gone on for San Francisco, they'll at least be in a tie for first place entering the weekend. And if Arizona loses as an underdog to Green Bay, San Francisco will be holding first place on the virtue of the tiebreaker against Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about their 2 losses these last 2 weeks, or well, I guess their loss last week to the Cardinals was by 1 point. If you go out to their 3 losses this year, it's by a combined 10 points.
Yeah, losing close games.
Losing the 3 games are all by 1 possession, so they're all in tight games. And 2 of those 3 losses were also on the road this year. So another thing that may go in Seattle's favor is that it is with the 12th man in Seattle tonight. But it's just hard to go against the Niners right now, especially when their next 2 games, they host the Chiefs, they host the Cowboys, and then they have their bye week. So if they lose tonight, 2-4 going into the Chiefs, could be 2-5 going into the Cowboys. So you kind of have to look at it, if you're the Niners, as this is a must win to go into Kansas City, possibly go out of that one 3-4, and then 4-4 into your bye week. So this is a big spot for the Niners. And then, you had mentioned it for the Seahawks. They go in to Atlanta next week, then they host Buffalo, then they host the Rams, and then they're in their bye week in week 10. So I don't necessarily see the Seahawks pulling off the upset tonight, but I do see them getting a win in one of these next 2 weeks, either versus the Falcons or the Bills, before getting to see the Rams at home for their bye week.
Niners' schedule is out of control. That's why losing last week was such a big deal for San Francisco, where you're a touchdown favorite at home in a division. You got to find a way to do it. By the way, Niners have been favored in every game this year, and are still 2-3. So, again, as we've talked about on this show, being a 7-point favorite in the NFL is equivalent to having a 3-goal lead in hockey right now. It's the most dangerous thing to be in the sport. I'll just extrapolate even further out with the Niners here, schedule-wise. Seahawks tonight, favored, not an easy game in division on the road.
Right.
Kansas City's going to be I would make Kansas City a favorite in Santa Clara. It'll be interesting to see what the books do. Kansas City coming off a bye. You have to throw in the tax that Andy Reid has only lost twice in his career off a bye as well.
Do you include injuries?
I still would make Kansas City the small. Okay. Like I'm talking one.
Yeah,
like if you made a pick, I wouldn't throw. Even if you made Niners 1.5, I would bet Kansas City in that spot. But we know the Chiefs just battered, but that defense is the best unit in that game at the moment. It's crazy as that may sound to everyone out there.
Yep.
The Cowboys after that, the Niners own the Cowboys. We know this. That will be the, hey, let's get back on the horse game if they manage to lose one of these next 2.
Exactly, yep.
Then the Bucks, there it is right on your schedule, on your screen. Bucks, Seahawks, Packers, Bills. Yeesh. That is brutal any way you slice it.
3 of those 4 on the road, too.
Yeah, and that Bear game is not a total gimme if Caleb Williams has totally found it. What happened last week is sign of things to come, and then it does soften significantly the last month of the season, even with that Detroit game mixed in there. I shouldn't even say that. The Rams and the Cardinals have beaten them already this year, and that's in a softer spot. It feels like it's a gotta-have. It really does feel like, you mentioned it, it feels like it's a gotta-have-it spot here tonight for San Francisco, or the train can really come flying off the tracks.
Or we're going to see a very heavy back half of the year where they need to win 5 of their final 6 in order to make the playoffs.
Well, look, the one benefit that I will say with both of these teams, and this is also going to go for Monday night when we're back here previewing the Jets and the Bills.
Yep.
Neither of these conferences have enough depth this year. Now, the NFC North might have something to say about that, but I still don't love the depth in the NFC. But for the Niners, the one problem the Niners have with the way their wins have come out, they're 2-0 out of conference. They're 0-3 in conference. They're behind the 8 ball already in tiebreakers with all these teams, and also the divisional record doesn't help at all. All right, let's look at some anytime touchdown numbers real quick here, Ryan. And I'm curious who may stand out to you. Of course, these numbers via DraftKings. Jordan Mason's pushing $2. Yeah, he probably will score, but I don't want to lay almost $2 in an anytime touchdown market. No, thank you. Here's my question for you. We know Kenneth Walker's back. Kenneth Walker fully healthy. Looked good last week. Is there any merit at all to taking a shot on Charbonnet as a touchdown vulture, getting north of $3 here tonight, Ryan?
I don't necessarily see a reason not, but at the same point, I might also be tempted to snag Geno Smith as a touchdown vulture tonight. Geno Smith had his highest career high rushing game last week. So his ability to escape the pocket was something that we didn't expect or foresee going last week. And he showed his ability to break the field open and show his speed. We got to see that last week. So could get to see it tonight. I think I would take Geno instead of Charbonnet. But again, backup running back is more likely to score than a non-mobile quarterback. But the one that I love tonight, the player that I love tonight in general, is Deebo Samuel.
Well, no Tariq Woolen, so that's a big deal in this one, of course.
So Deebo's receiving yards tonight via DraftKings is 54.5.
Okay.
Love the over there. 4.5 receptions. Honestly, like the over there. 13.5 rushing yards. I'm loving Deebo Samuel tonight. So I went back and looked at his game logs against the Seahawks, his averages. So he's played in 9 games against the Seahawks. He's missed 4 by being inactive. He's averaging 110 receiving yards, 6.6 catches on 9 targets, and averaging 1.14 touchdowns per game, 8 in his 7 games against the Seahawks. 7 games, yeah. And the Niners are 5-2 with Deebo active. So I'm loving Deebo Samuel tonight.
With Woolen out, one of these San Francisco wide receivers is going to have a big game. It's just a matter of, will it be Deebo, or will this finally be the night where Ayuk shows up here in 2024?
Well, so to that point, I think it is the spot for Deebo, because last week we saw 12 targets for Brandon Ayuk, 8 catches. We saw 12 targets for George Kittle, 8 receptions. So those were the 2 big receiving outpoints for the 49ers last week. Jawan Jennings had 1 catch. Deebo Samuel had 1 catch and 3 rushes. So if the Niners are going to get back on track and get everybody in their offense involved, Deebo's got to get more either looks. You can't just have 1 catch and 3 rushes. So again, I think it's a big bounce back spot for Deebo. Also, if you look at him in Seattle, outside of his rookie year, including his rookie year, both of the games in his rookie year, he had over 100 receiving yards, had a touchdown in the second game. He had over 100 receiving yards in game 1 in 2021, inactive in game 2 of 2021. 2022, he did have a down year. But in the playoff game, he had 133 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, Deebo's average yard per target against the Seahawks is around 10 yards per target. So spreading the field with Deebo Samuel, I'm loving it tonight.
3.5 right now. Niners. Again, we already know no Reek Woolen, no Byron Murphy, no Owusu on the defensive side again. So yes, pieces back, especially the linebacking position.
Yep.
But with Woolen down, their best corner, it's not the best of trade-offs in this game for Seattle. And again, the Niners, as we know we're not seeing Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Elliott's not going to play. That's the biggest name. Who's and a Fungo as well might not be in.
Yep.
We'll get the official word as well when we get a little bit later. But it is a look. This is a big deal. Also, actually, I forgot the most important injury on the San Francisco side. How could I forget Jake Moody, who sprained his ankle last week? I thought he ruptured his Achilles the way that he came down. So a sprained ankle, all things considered, not the worst news in the world. So You replace Moody, who's really turned into one of the better kickers in the National Football League, with Matthew Wright. Now, look, when we handicap games, Ryan, we don't normally look at the kickers.
Nope.
But in a game that's going to be close more likely than not, and the line tells you that.
Yes.
The Niners going from a guy who is, again, after initial struggles, has turned into one of the better kickers in the National Football League, to Matthew Wright, who's made 85% of his career field goals. He's bounced around from a few teams, 2 stints in Pittsburgh. His only full season in the NFL was in 2021 with the Jags, where he did have a good year, 21-24. He did make 4 field goals north of 50, so had a really good year. But has struggled to stay on a roster other than that. 2022, he made 12 field, somehow attempted 14 field goals in 4 games for Pittsburgh.
And that was the last time that he made an NFL field goal.
Which is kind of crazy in its own right. But that is something to at least keep in the back of your mind tonight, that the Niners have a guy who's probably between the 25th and 35th best kicker in the National Football League at this point.
Okay.
So that is something to at least keep in mind.
One fun prop that I know we have here at the South Point
go for it.
And I bring it up very often, the 3 unanswered scores.
All right, what do we price that tonight, Ryan?
So Chris and company opened it at -155 on the yes. I'm not exactly sure what it is currently. But since Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers as the head coach, the yes is 12-3 in the Seattle-San Francisco games. Every single first game of the year has had 3 straight unanswered scores. The only times that it hadn't happened, Game 2 of 2023, so their last matchup, Game 2 of 2022, did happen again in the playoffs that year, and Game 2 of 2018. So if you like the 3 unanswered scores, 12-3 is the yes in this rivalry. Also, if you are a first quarter bettor, the Niners have won 8 of the 15. So kind of 50-50 money line first quarters, but one side has been shut out in 11 of the 15. So not a ton of scoring in the first quarter. If it's a 7.5, may look to the under. But just to keep that in mind, 10 of the 15, one team has been held scoreless in the first quarter.
So first quarter right now, if you're going first quarter total, it's 9.5 juiced over.
9.5, okay.
It are the predominant numbers out there. 9.5 juiced over. I don't mind ever going under in these primetime games. No problem, especially the Thursday games on a short week. Yep. On top of what you just went through there, Ryan, I would have no issue looking at any of that here tonight. All right, let's shift over to college. We'll get back to the NFL game a little bit later in the show. Of course, we'll have Dwayne's thoughts and more. There are a trio of college football games tonight. Ann is putting her voodoo to the test, but we'll get to that game last. Let's start in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the Sun Belt. James Madison coming off getting stunned by Louisiana Monroe. Monroe's actually a perfectly solid football team. But still, James Madison, a week after scoring 70, gets upset. Now they get Coastal Carolina. This has been a fascinating betting game, Ryan, where we've gone from 9.5 down to 7.5 behind us. There's a rogue 7 in the market, and not only that, it's juice on the underdog at that shop right now. I've already come in on James Madison at that 7, Ryan. Total has gone from 62 down to 60 after a trip up to 63. Hey, look, Coastal Carolina, I have been underwhelmed with so far this year, other than their throttling of Jacksonville State week 1, which I think has to do more with Jacksonville State. And yes, Coastal Carolina's 4-1. That is strange. Maybe, especially if you're listening, like, wait a second, they're 4-1. Why are they underwhelming? Just look at the results. Other than week 1, they struggled to beat Temple, who is one of the worst teams in FBS. Forget just the American, in FBS. They struggled to beat a very mediocre Old Dominion team. I'm not even looking at William and Mary. Their only step-up game, Virginia's turned out to be much better than I thought they were. But Coastal Carolina was out of that game pretty quickly. They turned the ball over a few times, and Virginia took full advantage of that. Virginia right now 4-1 on the year. Look, James Madison just had a bad game last week. And look, they put up 70 on North Carolina. They put 63 on the board against Ball State. 133 points in 2 weeks is super impressive regardless of what the opponent's defenses happen to be. And I thought that had more to do just credit Monroe last week.
Yep.
Where Monroe had the good game plan, a little bit of a look-ahead spot. I know that maybe seemed funky to some, but it is kind of a dead spot on the road in a non-football power. And Barnett was awful in that game last week. It was 20 of 47. This has bounce back written all over it for me. At 7 flat, I'm on James Madison. I would not go higher than that, even though the number has come down through the week. But I would go find that 7 and go bet the 7 with the Dukes of James Madison tonight, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I'm not entirely sure why this moved from 9.5 down to this 7.5 and the 7 we see in the market. Coastal Carolina is 1-3 all time versus James Madison. They did get embarrassed 56-14 at James Madison last year to end the season. That was also a game in which James Madison was coming off a loss. Same thing this week, James Madison coming off a loss. Granted, they did just lose to the second best defense in the Sun Belt, so not entirely a big shocking. Shocking, yes. James Madison has been a dominant college in this conference for 10 years now. 2016, 17 is when they went 14 and anyway.
Yeah.
But regardless, so I'm expecting up a JMU fired up team, fired up crowd, coming back home after a loss. Both teams have their leading rusher is their running back 1. Their second leading rusher is their quarterback 1. Mm-hmm. So for JMU, their success, they live and die by Alonzo Barnett. So for him to be able to take care of this offense tonight, not turn the ball over, is the way that I see JMU covering the 7.5 or whichever number you choose to lay if you find that 7. But since 2014, JMU is 11-4 after a regular season loss. Their losses, all 4 of them, were with backup quarterbacks because their starter got hurt, and all 7 of their last win, 7 of the most recent wins, were all by double digits. So again, expecting a very fired up JMU team and crowd for this one.
7.5 behind us. There's 1-7 in the market right now. Now another game in the belt, or I will say this here with Middle Tennessee and Louisiana Tech. Of course, actually, this is CUSA, I should say. Yep. Excuse me. Middle Tennessee used to be in the belt, along with Western Kentucky, who we'll talk about in a moment. 4.5 behind us. Ryan, there's a 6 in the market on this now. Go find the 6 and take the 6. That would be the way I would play this game. If it was 4 and 6, I would say go try and get this game to land on 5, but we know that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
4.5 behind us is unplayable. Both of these teams do highly mediocre.
Yep.
And again, I don't think Louisiana Tech should be favored by more than 4 against many FBS teams. I
agree with you there.
And I don't think Middle Tennessee is one of those teams. So if there's 1-6 in the market, go bet it. I think that's a good bet on Middle Tennessee. Our friends over at Superbook have that 6 at the moment, Ryan.
So all-time, La Tech leads this one 5-3 straight up, so pretty even in the matchups. But the last 7 were all won by the home team, so that favors La Tech in this one. But these are 2 of the worst rushing teams in Conference USA. But the positive for Louisiana Tech is that they have one of the best defenses in Conference USA. So that's the one thing that may sell me on them to cover. But again, like Jeff said, if you find that 6 or are able to go get that 6, very, very compelling to do so. But I'm expecting a low scoring contest. These 2 offenses combined 33 points per game. So way under that total. I would go to the under on this one.
Yeah, that 6 is gone, Ryan. It's 5.5 now. So hopefully you got it.
Hopefully you didn't blink.
Hopefully you didn't blink on that one. Western Kentucky UTEP's up next. Ann is on UTEP tonight.
Good luck.
It's a lot of fortitude for our fearless leader Ann to be on UTEP, who has been we'll be polite here. They've been brutal.
Yeah.
So far this year, they're 0-5. Last week, I actually thought it was a pretty reasonable spot for them in the midweek against Sam Houston. They got ran out of the building at the Sun Belt, lost by 20, didn't even come close to covering any numbers. Now to go on the road to deal with Western Kentucky, they're okay. Last time we saw them, they had a 2-touchdown lead on Boston College and blew it. Of course, Alabama beat them 63-0. When Western Kentucky's been at their level of competition, they've been fine. They're 3-0 against their level of competition this year, Ryan, outright. They beat Toledo, who, of course, went to Mississippi State and beat Mississippi State by 4 scores. They beat up on that Middle Tennessee State team we just talked about. Now to get the worst in the CUSA, this is another weirdo one. As high as 20 in the market, as low as 18, 19.5 behind us. We did mention last week that there has to be 2 points added for Western Kentucky's helmets tonight.
Yeah. Whole uniforms, the big red,
for the
big
eyes
red
on
uniforms.
The helmet. I will say, if you can find that 18 on Western Kentucky, I actually think is if you want to lay it, I think that's fine. I wouldn't go much higher than that. Don't really love laying 19.5, 20 in this game. They probably do cover it. But 18, you got a lot of outs at 18 in order to get you home there. That I think can get you home with Western Kentucky. That would be the lean at 18. Superbook. That's where the best numbers have been, at least for these games here today, at least for the sides I like, Ryan. 18 on Western Kentucky there, 19.5 behind us here at the South Point.
Yeah, this 19.5 does worry me. All time it is 4-0 for Western Kentucky. UTEP has never beaten Western Kentucky. 2 wins on the road and 2 wins at home for the Hilltoppers. So UTEP is currently 8th out of 10 teams in Conference USA in yards allowed per game. They are also 7th in points allowed per game. Western Kentucky is top half of the conference in most stats. UTEP is in the bottom half, except for passing yards allowed per game. And that is also because teams don't need to pass the ball against UTEP because they're already up by so much. So that one's kind of skewed a little bit, kind of like the Vikings number in the NFL. But with that being said, 73% of Western Kentucky's offense comes via the pass. So if Western Kentucky does get up early, could be a kind of plateau spot to where, just like you saw last week in their loss against Boston College, they may get up early, may kind of fold in the second half, and UTEP ends up getting the back door. So I'm staying off this one because I do think the back door is a possibility, but could also be the same point of JMU and Western Kentucky being fired up after a loss. So
19.5 behind us, as low as 18, as high as 20. Totals 56, pretty much a blanketed across on this one. It would only be a lean to the over here, but if you're going to get this game over, you're going to probably need 20 some odd from UTEP in order to get there, which good luck potentially. I guess you could get there at 42-17. That would get you there. That would get you over that. The fact that I like two midweek favorites in college football is always a little bit frightening there for me, Ryan McCormick. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, NFL Power Rankings, and our good friend Dwayne Colucci joins us in about 10 minutes as well. A lot of changes for us in the Power Rankings. We got a team that I didn't expect to be up there, is in the top 10, and I think they deserve to be there.
I think I'm there with you. So
yeah, we'll tell you about it next. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, You can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick on the other side of your screen, in the other box, as you see there. There, look at our Twitter accounts on the bottom as well. Also, actually, speaking of Twitter, Sports by the Book, where you can find us on X, Twitter, whatever the hell we're calling it these days, and on YouTube as well. But if you're watching us, you know you got to get us right here on this YouTube page as well. And Ryan, of course, as always, if you want to chat along with us, you can chat along. But you have to hit that subscribe button first in order to chat.
Yeah. Once you subscribe, you can chime in the chat after 5 minutes. And we've got Vince Las Vegas saying happy Thursday, gents, and Agent 87 saying good stuff. So if anybody's watching, you have some favorite plays tonight on the games tonight or entire weekend. If you got any questions or favorite plays, let us know in the chat. We will shout you out. So
we'll do our best to answer.
Yeah.
Can't guarantee an answer, unfortunately, because this is hard. This is hard to figure some angles every once in a while, guys. But we'll do our best. Or Ryan, or one of us will. Also Ryan's got the football shirt again, so maybe the answers are just lying in there with all the footballs on the
you never know
on the shirt there. All right, let's go to our power rankings, and this is the NFL wise. After we had carnage on Monday in our college rankings, which, by the way. Obviously, my brain has obviously been in baseball this week, more so than usual for obvious reasons.
He's a Mets fan,
pretty good week pretty good 10 days for me and the Mets. But this upcoming weekend in college football is sick.
Yes,
and we'll preview it all tomorrow on Football Frenzy. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, and Jimmy Vaccaro, and of course Alex White and I will be here on Saturday morning to get you the last minute advice for your epic football Saturday coming up. NFL week's pretty good too. And our NFL power rankings are right here. So let's go right to it. And there you go, 1 through 10. Starting at the bottom, Ryan, I couldn't find
still got him in there, huh?
I couldn't find the number 10. I couldn't put Dallas in there. I had to move the Jets out. The Jets have obviously had a ridiculous week, even by Jet standards. Firing Robert Saleh on Tuesday morning, demoting Nathaniel Hackett earlier today. You know what? If there were two problems, well, Saleh's a great defensive coach, not a head coach. Hackett, we know, known terrible football coach in every way. So maybe we'll have the preview on Monday when we get around to that. Look, I will full disclosure on this. If the Pittsburgh Steelers had held on Sunday night, the Pittsburgh Steelers would be in the top 10.
Yep.
But that game showed their flaws more so than anything. Their defense is completely boom or bust if Watt is getting to the quarterback. If not, their defense is average. And that offense is, even though they have some pieces and Fields has looked pretty good, they ran an offense straight out of 1975 last week so far this year. And there's only so many times you can get away with it. And their schedule gets progressively difficult now after that pretty nice, easy start to the season for the Steelers. That's why they're out. Look, Philadelphia has top 10 talent. We know they don't have top 10 coaching. They also play Cleveland this week. Probably we're going in after beating up on Cleveland this weekend regardless. So I put them at 10. There is just a lot of mediocrity once you get past number 9 for me. Commanders, you're in, finally. Look, that offense is no fluke. The big question mark for me moving forward is that defense good enough in order to keep them as a legitimate contender in the NFC? Still waiting to figure that out.
Well, we'll get to see it this weekend.
Baltimore, Washington, Beltway battle, big time for sure. Packers at 8. Look, they won. Significant win against the Rams. They lost that. The season could have really started spiraling a little bit. Their favorites, nice size favorites this week against Arizona. handle your business at home. Green Bay, perfectly solid team. Buffalo, look, Josh Allen was awful on Sunday.
Yeah.
And the question marks about the weapons for Buffalo have reared their ugly head the last 2 weeks. And look, they get who knows what we're getting out of the Jets on Monday night. It's anyone's guess. They could look great. They could look like the mediocre team they've looked like the last 2 weeks. Who knows what we're getting out of the Jets. But for Buffalo, I need to see more. I had them at number 2, and I thought justifiably so after the 3-0 start. Looking for reasons to put them lower than 7. I just can't get lower than that. Houston at 6. Look, Nico Collins is on IR. That is a gigantic deal. The good thing for Houston this week, they play Drake May and the New England Patriots. I can't believe New England's starting him again. That pass rush. I think it's completely unfair to the kid.
It's almost
to throw him in there right away.
It's almost Bears-esque throwing Justin Fields against the Browns.
Yeah.
Oh
God. Yeah. That was
bench Dalton. 10 sacked 10 times.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That was a disaster.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if it's similar to that. Can't quit the Niners. They're still 5. Look, the talent keeps them up there. If they lose tonight, I'm going to have to think long and hard of how far to move them down. I don't know if they'll be out of the top 10, but it'll be pretty darn close at this point. And then I thought 1 through 4 was actually relatively easy. Minnesota comes in at number 4. The cracks started to show up a little bit in London because Sam Darnold looked like the bad Sam Darnold for the majority of the game. Maybe it was just because he's facing an elite defense. Maybe he'll be fine. They played Detroit out of their bye week in week 7. Be another big data point at that point. Baltimore goes up to 3. Look, it's very simple with Baltimore. And yes, if Evan McPherson makes that kick, Cincinnati's probably in the top 10 for me, and Baltimore's probably where Buffalo is right now. But you know what? They won a shootout, and Derrick Henry looks great. And the fact that Derrick Henry looks awesome is a frightening proposition if he's utilized correctly, and he's been utilized correctly the last 3 weeks. Detroit's 2. They have a bye week last week. No reason to move them. Kansas City goes into the bye injured, but they're still number 1. Patrick Mahomes is still QB1 in the league. And you know what? Kansas City might have the best defense in the NFL at this point, Ryan. And if that's the case, that is a position for anyone beating them down the line.
Well, so I have a question for you at your 6 and 7.
Yep.
Houston over Buffalo. I do know that Houston won by 3 this past week.
Yes.
You did mention that Nico Collins is not there. So what would you make that if that game was to be played this week?
I mean, those two are separated by half a point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's tight.
Okay.
It's super tight. The market probably would bet it to Buffalo. I would make it a pick personally on a neutral right now.
Okay.
With the way there are a lot of concerns on Buffalo's end, man. And Allen, I don't think Allen's 100% healthy either. Even though he did a good job fumbling the basketball though in that game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mostly agree with you. I do have the Bills still in my top 5. The Bills spot is where the asterisks would be, because I do think the NFC North has 3 teams in the top 5 in the NFL. You just won't see it said next to my face. So going. All
right. So the actual rankings push everyone down. Green Bay's at 5.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. If you want to do that in your own mental capacity, I can't. So. There you go. Number 10, I do have the Washington Commanders. That offense has been prolific. They are the number 1 scoring team in the red zone. They are the number 2 scoring offense in football. So cracking in the top 10. Big test this weekend, like we just mentioned, against the Baltimore Ravens. So yes. 9, I do have the Houston Texans. This does take into account for Nico Collins being out. Nico Collins doesn't play this past week against Buffalo. They don't get that 70-yard touchdown from him. Buffalo doesn't have to have the mishap in the last seconds of the game to where Texans can kick the field goal to win it. So 9 for Houston. 8 is Atlanta. I don't want to have them here. The mess between 5 and really 14 is all because of coaching mishaps, injuries, just questions all around the board. So that's why I have the Falcons here at 8 and still have the Bucs above them at 7. I think the Bucs are the better team. It took a record performance from Kirk Cousins to beat them this past weekend. Still have the Bucs better than them in the NFC South. I have the Niners at 6. Still injury concerns. They need to figure out what they're doing with all their weapons. George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Jawan Jennings has proved that he can be a real wide receiver in this league, and getting Debo, only 4 touches last week, getting Jawan only 1 catch last week isn't going to be enough. So that's why they are at 6. Then the Bills at 5. Again, questions on what they're doing on offense. Keon Coleman not really getting any kind of looks, wondering what's taken so long and why Joe Brady can't get this meshed. But again, I don't see Josh Allen ever completing a full game again in his career and having a 30% completion percentage. So I don't think Buffalo is below anywhere beneath where Jeff had them. So the Vikings at 4. Jeff made the point that Sam Darnold didn't look how he had in weeks past, but I think that was because he played a great Jets defense. The Jets are trying to figure out what they're doing on offense, now trying to figure out what they're doing at head coach and offensive coordinator, which is another bigger question. But I think the Vikings just played a good defense last week. And then the Ravens at 3, finally getting to see a backfield of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry run all over defenses. So I love being able to see that. And then I did have the Detroit Lions at number 1 last week. I did say it was because of all the injuries that the Kansas City Chiefs had that I finally took them out. But Juju Smith-Schuster coming back, showing up. Kareem Hunt coming back, showing up. So Chiefs just proving that they need guys that can make plays to make plays, and they are the best team in football. So Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions, and Baltimore Ravens, my 1, 2, and 3, just like Jeff Parles.
Yeah, I think 1, 2, 3 is I don't want to say it's obvious because it may not be, but
right.
At least to me, it felt like that was the clear-cut top of the league at the moment with Baltimore, Detroit, and Kansas City. Again, we're going to learn a lot about Washington this week on the road.
And Baltimore, too.
I will say, typically, this is the type of team Baltimore destroys. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
We saw it even with the Lions that they pummeled Detroit last year when Detroit was in this, again, maybe a little bit different, obviously, but just pummeled the Lions on that. All right, we'll take a quick 1-minute break. When we get back, we go to the Rampart up in Summerlin. Our friend DC, Dwayne Colucci, joins us next here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
We're back. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick, and now with us up at the Rampart, race and sportsbook director at the lovely Rampart in Summerlin, Las Vegas, our good friend Dwayne Colucci with us right now. Dwayne, good afternoon as always, my friend.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Lovely Las Vegas. I mean, it's still, what is it, 90 today? Still,
yeah, I know.
The heat is roaring, but it's starting to settle down a little. And, I thank God every day we're not in Florida, and you never have any hurricanes or tornado worries here. So definitely the place to live.
Yes. Our thoughts, of course, with everyone in the Tampa Bay area, Hurricane Milton with a path of destruction. All of our thoughts with everyone who is in the path of that destructive storm that went through over the last 24 hours. Dwayne, there's no artful segue, but we'll try here. Let's go to the game tonight in Seattle. 3.5. It's been pretty well locked and loaded there for the last 3 days. Totals bounced around a little bit, but this is a very important game in the NFC West. Seattle trying to get off the schneid with 2 straight losses, and the Niners, of course, coming in at 2-3 after an inexplicable loss at home last week to Arizona.
Yeah, and Seattle's like 1-4 against the spread too. So this is going to be an interesting game. Most times when these teams match up, if memory serves me correct, they like to score against each other. But definitely, that was an unexcusable loss for San Francisco. They're really trying and find themselves now, and it just shows how much Christian McCaffrey really means to this team, as well as Mason has played. And Kittle has played awesome. He's got a ton of touchdowns. You need the whole, four actually out there: Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, and McCaffrey. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. This is a very, very important game, especially for the 49ers, if you ask me. They're the team that's under the watch right now. They were the NFC, favorite, and now it's starting to, get a little questioning if they can produce and replicate what they did last year. I still think there's a ton of football left. I think this team is definitely the best team in the NFC, but it's a matter of putting it all together and coaching.
Dwayne, just with everything here in the NFC as a whole, obviously Washington's a big surprise. The NFC North looks super, super strong, yet I thought it was going to be strong. Everyone's over 500 right now in the division. Even the NFC South, which we didn't expect much out of, has two teams that look like legitimate playoff teams in Atlanta and Tampa Bay through the first month plus. Just from even just a bookmaking perspective, the added layer of a divisional game like this and the importance even on October the 10th, Dwayne.
Yeah, it's very important, Jeff. You touched upon it correctly. I mean, these teams have to win. And when other teams start to overachieve, and you're starting to see, like you said, Minnesota definitely overachieving, undefeated right now. You knew Green Bay was going to be great. I mean, they overcame the Love injury, which is very important. You knew Detroit is right there. They have a superstar lineup. So, yeah, it becomes more important when you do have these other teams in the mix. Like you said, you do have Tampa Bay. You do have Atlanta. I question if those two are, teams that could go deep in the playoffs, but they definitely can go in the playoffs and make the playoffs. That's the whole key. So when you're early on in the season, you need to win certain games and pick up some momentum so you can fall back on late in the season and possibly rest some of these players. So it becomes very important, especially right now for San Francisco. Everybody thought they'd be running the table. They destroyed the Jets on opening night. Everything looked so brilliant, and now everything has come back right down to earth, and it's definitely an important game. Also, Geno Smith, it's an important game. And, the San Francisco 49ers have beat this team 5 in a row. So, you don't want it to get repetitious to where it gets to 6 and 7 and you just fall apart from the Seattle perspective. Seattle has played well despite their, coming into the regular season. They were not projected to do very well, and they've somewhat overachieved. So the NFC is up for grabs. We talk about this year in and year out. There are so many competitive teams. Like you said, Jeff, the emergence of Jaden Daniels has added another team into the NFC least. And, I always say that because I really don't think Philly and Dallas are dominating teams, but who has Daniels beaten thus far? It's going to be interesting to see when these teams match up. Big win for Dallas the other night. Do not put all the blame on Dak Prescott. They're still 3-2. Tremendous amount of injuries. I'm going to talk about my team. When you're missing Lawrence, you're missing Parsons, you're missing Brandon Cooks, and yet you still roll into Pittsburgh and win. That's a big, big victory, especially the way Pittsburgh was playing. And, that team had a chip on their shoulder, and Tomlin has been coaching them very well, even though they're playing without Russell Wilson. So NFC is up for grabs. You hit the nail on the head, Jeff. This is a very, very important game, and I think San Francisco is going to stress that tonight.
Real quick, one quick injury note that was not overly expected. Charchavius Ward, the best corner on the Niners, is out. So both teams without their best corners tonight, Ryan.
Yeah, it could be a big hole in allowing for DK Metcalf to finally show up this season for the Seahawks.
Dwayne, let's real quick tonight, college football-wise, 3 games. Is anything stood out at your shop? I know they're not the most attractive games. Coastal Carolina, JMU, Middle Tennessee, La Tech, and UTEP in Western Kentucky, those 3 games tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and you don't have anything really overwhelming going on right now, Jeff. Western Kentucky is definitely a market favorite, and what the public is backing, they're 19.5 right now. You do have about a 3.5 to 1 ticket count on that game, and the money is almost 3 to 1. So definitely getting a lot of Western Kentucky action here at the Rampart and the South Point. The other two games, the money's pretty close, a little on Coastal Carolina, and 2 to 1 ticket count on La Tech. But yet the Sharps took Middle Tennessee State. So that's another weird matchup, not the most enamoring matchups. Tomorrow night, we have some real good matchups, including the UNLV Running Rebels. So, you do have, I'm looking at it, the Rebels at a 4 to 1 ticket count in that game. And Utah -6, they've been a nice attraction. And they've definitely been focal point this season on parlays and teasers for some of my clients here at the Rampart and South Point.
So, Dwayne, one of the matchups I'm curious about tonight, we saw it open at 9.5, James Madison against Coastal Carolina, but we've now seen some shops even drop it to 7. Do you have kind of any explanation for why it would shift that way?
Yeah, it's 7.5, and we are getting a little money, like I did say, Ryan, on Coastal Carolina. So, when the money starts to come in, we're definitely going to make the adjustments. The ticket count is in favor on the other side, but the money is starting to get a little lopsided. So, as they bet, we are going to move from 9 down to 7.5 at the Rampart and South Point. Coastal Carolina, we are a little high on that end, but nothing that's going to rock the world.
Okay.
Dwayne, I want to go to Saturday, and this is a heck of a Saturday in college football. We've been circling this one all summer long, all first month of the season long, and it's finally here at Autzen Stadium, where Oregon gets their crack at Ohio State. And look, Ohio State has looked every bit the part of a top 2 team in the country through the first month. Oregon has been questionable. Even though they're undefeated, they have not looked the part for a good majority of the season so far. And Dwayne, when we talked with Chris on Monday about this, games of the year, Oregon was a favorite in the games of the year when they went up during the summer. Now, when it was reopened by Chris on Monday, Oregon is 4. The bettors have taken it down to 3. Dwayne, this is what it's all about, my friend. I mean, this is one good thing about the conference realignment. You get mega match. You're getting mega matchups every single week in the Big Ten and the SEC now.
Yeah, especially after Alabama let down, Georgia let down against Alabama. You got Vanderbilt coming in and winning. So the SEC is always the toughest conference to handicap, and it's always the most prominent. But yes, we did see, Oregon did take the money initially. It's down to 3 now. I'm looking at the ticket count is very close, but the money is on Oregon. The Sharps took Oregon, and, this is going to be a marquee heavyweight matchup. Ohio State has played, very well to start the season, as has Oregon. And this is the focal game on the schedule because, like we discussed, you had so many of these powerhouses that now have losses. And you continue to see it week in, week out, whether it's Alabama, whether it's USC, all these top teams, Michigan, they've fallen off the map. It definitely becomes a marquee matchup and an important game. I would take the points, at home. Always love a home underdog, especially in a marquee matchup of this magnitude. The total is sitting at 53.5. Like I said, initial reaction when Chris opened the game at -4 was to take Oregon. It's down to 3. We'll see if it could come, across that key number, maybe get to 2.5. But I'm anticipating some Ohio State money as we get closer to game time, guys. This is going to be the marquee matchup of this Saturday. Everybody's going to have parlays and teasers on this game. Very exciting game. And, especially played in Oregon, it's going to be tough for Ohio State to come in there and win, but they're playing the part, so they look very well right now.
I'm right there with you, Dwayne. I kind of see it playing along similarly to how UW and Michigan played last week. So Michigan going into UW and having to lose the Pac-12, Big Ten, kind of that team flip-flopping to go into the Pac-12's house. So may see the same play out tonight or Saturday with Oregon. But my question is going to be the Red River rivalry, number 1 versus number 18. What are you seeing in Texas versus Oklahoma?
Yeah, there's another marquee matchup, Ryan. Definitely, you hit the nail on the head. The Red River is always one of them bloodbaths. That's why it's called that. And you have the number one team in the country playing in this game. So, always the initial reaction is good two-way action. I'm seeing good two-way action on this game as I look at the numbers. 14.5. This is a huge point spread on the road for Texas, but they played the part, Ryan. They've looked great so far. You have multiple quarterbacks on the team. The ticket count right now is just about 2-1 in Texas, but the money is $2 difference as I look at the market right now. So we're getting great two-way action. This is going to be an excellent game. It's tough to lay over 2 touchdowns on the road, but this Texas team is capable. I'm anticipating a blowout, I believe it or not. Here.
All right.
I'm with Dwayne. I mean, Sean's not.
Yeah, our guy Sean.
Sean's
not
not
like
here right now. I think Quinn Ewers is back too. It's a rivalry game. I know it's the cliche, but you do need to throw out the record books with this. But I mean, Texas is just so good. I mean, they're just so
unbelievable,
so
right?
talented.
I mean, and only $2 apart. I like what I'm seeing as a bookmaker right now.
Dwayne, one last game I want to ask you about before we let you go, and it's an NFL game, and it's one where, look, Washington goes to Baltimore. This game has not moved all week. It's been stuck on 6.5. Total's the highest not the highest anymore. It was at the open. Dallas and Detroit are higher now, 51.5 on this. And Dwayne, I've asked this of Chris and Vinny, and I'm curious your thoughts here. When you're dealing with a team like Washington, where we looked at them going into the year and said, all right, this is the 29th best team in the NFL, 28th best team in the NFL. And they've, after getting blown out and looking like the 29th or 28th best team in the NFL in week 1, they have been as good as anyone the last 4 weeks, and their offense has been the best unit, arguably, in the entire league the last month. Now that we're 5 weeks in, how do we evaluate them in comparison with, hey, what priors need to still be in there, or are we just throwing away most of the priors at this point and saying, hey, the Washington Commanders are a legitimate contender in the National Football League at this point?
Well, the public is doing that, Jeff.
Oh,
you can obviously see that. But, the division rivalries are still there, and there's a lot of division games to be played for this team. And we saw what Baltimore was able to do against Dallas. They opened up a huge lead, but then they fell back a little on their laurels. And, it was a dogfight until the end. And that was a fully healthy Dallas team. Now, you're playing Washington. Washington's riding high right now, but you're seeing that 6.5 point spread. I think reality check is up and coming. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think, late in the game, Baltimore might get away. I think it's an important game for Baltimore. They have to establish themselves. They keep playing these rough games and take a little stutter step. As Richie Aprile would say in The Sopranos, you don't want to have too many of them stutter steps. That becomes a problem. So I think Baltimore really is going to put some emphasis on this game. That's why you're seeing 6.5. I'm looking at the money. It's all Commanders. Everybody's buying into Jaden Daniels. His supporting cast really has rallied around him, but he's been a one-man show. Unbelievable. You're talking about what? How many incompletions this year? He's breaking rookie records left and right. First person to have, 250 rushing yards and 1,000 passing yards. This kid is phenomenal, but I think Baltimore is really going to make it a point to try and seal, play a little ball control with Henry, try and get away late, after coming off these big victories that they've had against marquee teams, Baltimore, whereas the Commanders have not really played a great team as of yet. We're going to see now. This is the measuring stick game, kind of like Baltimore, unfortunately, guys. The total 51.5, I think it's going to go under, actually. I think they're going to play ball control, Baltimore. They're going to put a lot of pressure on this kid. And if any team scores a lot, it's going to be Baltimore in this matchup.
Okay, I agree with you. I do think they're going to try and play a very ball control, slow the pace of play, and not allow Jaden Daniels to get on the field. I went and looked at, tried to do a little coaching dive. So Dan Quinn has not beaten John Harbaugh in his career. Has only played against him, or coached against him one time in his career. It was when he was the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons ended up losing that game. They allowed 25 first downs, allowed 366 total yards, and 207 rush yards. So for an offense that is looking like they want to run the ball a ton, with a monster backfield in Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, that might not be good going into Commanders this weekend. But then I also tried to look at Dan Quinn defenses versus Todd Monken offenses. Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. Dan Quinn is 5-1 against Todd Monken in his coaching career. Allowed 300, but has allowed 370 yards in all 6 contests. So the total has also gone over this total in 5 of those 6. So with those 2 coaches, with Dan Quinn's defense, John Harbaugh's defense, and the offense for the Ravens, I would be right there with you, Dwayne, going with the Ravens against the spread. Maybe staying off the total, though. So,
plus, Washington has to travel, guys. Let's keep that in mind. You're going into Baltimore. This is not a home game.
It is an easy trip, though, Dwayne. No airport.
No kidding there. No kidding. But it's always tough to go into an opponent's field, especially the AFC.
I get it. I 100% agree. It is an easy trek up the beltways from D.C. up to Baltimore. Dwayne Colucci.
Let me tell you, us New Yorkers, Jeff, it was always an easy trip to the Meadowlands, but I didn't always want to make it, I'll tell you that.
I'd argue that going from any of the boroughs to the Meadowlands, Brooklyn or Queens, not a fun drive to the Meadowlands. I'll give you that, Dwayne.
There you go.
Neither of those boroughs, not the best of drives. Dwayne, it's a pleasure as always. Of course, go find Dwayne up at the Rampart, NY Boogie Dwayne on the tweets. Dwayne, pleasure. We'll talk to you next week.
Definitely, Jeff. Definitely, Ryan. Let's cash some tickets, guys. We need to make some money, especially on this college slate this week.
Absolutely. Dwayne Colucci, everyone. All right. That's all the time we have here tonight. We're back tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Myself, Chris Andrews, Vinny, Magliulo, and Jimmy Vaccaro at 2 o'clock. Get you ready for the week in football right here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. And, of course, tomorrow morning, Kenny White at 9 a.m., a very big day, including a Game 5 at Dodger Stadium between the Padres and the Dodgers. We'll see you again tomorrow. This has been Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. Big thanks to Jerry and Ann as well, keeping us in order here on this show.